Just last week, a college party clip blew up online after looks-maxing streamer Clavicular got brutally frame-mogged by an ASU frat lord standing beside him with zero effort, the camera angle draining his aura in real time. The posture diff locked him into a ruthless side-by-side that spread across feeds like wildfire. The moment triggered instant cortisol spikes and total aura collapse, while the frat leader named Varys leaned into the attention, jester maxing across campus and dropping the nonchalant gimmick that made the clip go viral. Themes across the internet quickly flooded the timeline, going full goon max over every micro-expression like it was a historical artifact, reposting the same frozen frame until it became the only canon version people recognized. Edits kept looping, glaze levels stayed high, and the posture diff turned into permanent lore. What should have been a forgettable party interaction became a snapshot the algorithm refused to let die, slowly reshaping Clavicular's image into a meme defined by one cursed angle. Here's some insanely rare footage of a siphonophore, a deep-sea colony that looks more like an alien or sea creature than anything from Earth. Even though they appear to be a single creature, they're actually colonies made up of thousands of tiny bodies called zooids, each assigned a specific role like feeding, reproduction, or movement. Some species can grow longer than a blue whale, trailing glowing tentacles through the dark to sting and capture prey. Because they're extremely delicate and live thousands of feet below the surface, clear footage of siphonophores in their natural environment is rarely captured. Here's some footage of the only volcano in the world famous for its blue lava, Indonesia's Kawah Ijen. What you're seeing isn't actually blue molten rock, but sulfuric gas is igniting as they escape the crater, creating electric blue flames that can flow down the slope like liquid fire at night. The effect is only visible in darkness, which is why most clips are filmed after sunset. Miners still descend into the crater through toxic fumes to collect sulfur, working inside one of the most extreme volcanic environments on Earth. 24-year-old Bulgarian influencer Andrea Ivanova drew global attention after reportedly spending more than $49,000 on repeated lip filler procedures in pursuit of extreme cosmetic changes. She's publicly shared complications following treatments, including severe swelling, discomfort, and being unable to fully close her mouth. Doctors warn that excessive filler can stretch tissue, increase infection risk, and permanently alter normal facial function. In 2018, a 34-year-old man in Hunan, China attempted to fake his own death by sending his car into a river as part of an insurance fraud scheme meant to send his family a payout of about $145,000. But fully believing her husband had truly died, his wife later drowned their two children before taking her own life. Authorities said she had no knowledge of the plan and had been under severe emotional and financial stress, including heavy medical expenses tied to a child's epilepsy treatment. The man resurfaced days later and turned himself into police, telling investigators the scheme was driven by debt, turning what began as a fraud attempt into a fatal chain of unintended consequences. 2 years ago, 72-year-old Lillian Curtis pulled into a Denny's parking lot in Kentucky when a strong gust of wind suddenly knocked the Denny's sign over. It fell directly onto her car and crushed her, causing her to eventually die from blunt force injuries. In 1989, a Soviet jet fighter pilot mistakenly ejected just after takeoff from Poland. The aircraft continued flying for more than 500 miles on autopilot and ended up all the way in Belgium, only to crash into a house, killing a teenager. Near San Diego in 2022, a man died after crashing his car into a parked vehicle while driving rather slowly. Apparently, the knife he was using to mix protein powder while driving was propelled into his neck by the force of his airbag being deployed. In 2020, a Kansas man died after being shot by his dog in a freak hunting accident. He was sitting in the front seat of his pickup truck when his dog stepped on the trigger of his rifle in the back seat. In 1909, George Spencer Millett died in a freak accident while running away from 6 girls trying to give him kisses on his 15th birthday. He tripped and fell on an ink eraser in his front pocket that stabbed him in the heart. In 2011, a 49-year-old Russian woman had a heart attack and was pronounced dead. A few days later, she woke up at her own wake and was so shocked that she screamed and had another heart attack, this time dying for real. This one's actually insane. In 2010, 55-year-old Greg Flanagan was found dead on the floor inside of his locked hotel room in Texas. There were no signs of a break-in or robbery, as Greg's wallet was still in his back pocket with cash inside. He had suffered no obvious external injuries, but had massive internal damage, including broken ribs, damage to his liver and intestines, and a hole through his heart. Flanagan's death was soon ruled an unsolved homicide, despite coroners having no idea what actually happened to him. After an 8-month investigation, it was revealed that he died from a 1 in a million series of events. A drunk guest in the next hotel room accidentally fired a single bullet through the wall while playing with his pistol. While Flanagan was laying down watching Iron Man 2, the bullet hit him directly in the scrotum and continued up through his body and through his heart, likely killing him moments after he stood up and stumbled toward the door. Lance Moeller was later sentenced to 10 years in prison for his neighbor's bizarre accidental murder. During the Sandy Hook school shooting in 2012, 27-year-old elementary teacher Vicky Soto died a hero while saving her students from the gunman. After hearing gunshots from outside, she quickly hid her first graders in the classroom closet and refused to hide herself. When the shooter came to her room, she told him that her students were in the gym, after which some of the kids ran from their hiding spots in a panic. The shooter opened fire, but Soto shielded the children with her body as they escaped, saving 11 young lives while sacrificing her own. Nicknamed the Saint of Auschwitz, Maximilian Kolbe was a Polish Catholic priest who offered to die in the place of a concentration camp prisoner who was condemned to die of starvation. After surviving for several weeks, Kolbe was eventually killed by an injection of acid. The man he sacrificed himself for lived on for another 50+ years and dedicated his life to telling Kolbe's story. In 1982, the Pope canonized Kolbe and declared him a martyr of charity. Lauren Kreitzer was broke, depressed, and disabled after losing his leg in a car accident in 2007. But one day he saw a blanket valued at $500,000 on Antiques Roadshow and realized he had the exact same blanket. It was a Navajo blanket from the 1800s that he ended up selling for $1.5 million and quickly turned his life around. In 2010, Mexican singer Sergio Vega publicly denied a news report that he'd been murdered. 1 hour later, he was murdered. In 2001, Jason and Jenny Cairns Lawrence went on vacation in New York City when the World Trade Center was struck on 9/11. 4 years later, in 2005, they went on vacation in London when 4 suicide bombers attacked the London bus network, killing 52 people. Then in 2008, they were in Mumbai when once again, the city was attacked by 10 different terrorists who killed nearly 200 people. All 3 tragedies were the worst terrorist attacks in history for each of those countries. And now Jason and Jenny just stay home. A 42-year-old Russian fisherman was viciously attacked by a bear in 2014, but his life was spared when the ringtone his granddaughter installed onto his phone suddenly went off. Justin Bieber's song Baby miraculously sent the bear running back into the woods. During World War I, a 17-year-old British soldier's life was saved when his pocket Bible stopped a bullet. The book has been passed down through his family and still has the bullet embedded inside. The man who discovered the 5,000-year-old mummy Ötzi the Iceman would also end up being found dead, frozen in ice 13 years later. A Reddit user from California was gaming in his room when a stray bullet suddenly went through his window and struck him in the head. But he was miraculously saved by his Razer headset, which prevented the bullet from piercing his skull. In 2015, a dying fisherman told his 2 buddies to use his ashes as bait mix. 3 weeks after he died, his friends used his ashes to reel in this 180-pound monster carp, one of the largest ever caught. Known for playing Donna's mom in That 70s Show, actress Tanya Roberts died from a severe UTI that advanced to sepsis and multi-organ failure. She first noticed the pain while out hiking one day and decided to sleep it off. But the next morning, Roberts fell out of bed in severe pain and couldn't get back up. She was quickly rushed to the hospital where she ended up dying 2 weeks later. In 2022, a 71-year-old cyclist named William Hosch was struck by an ambulance while riding his bike in Oregon, causing multiple injuries, including a fractured nose. The same ambulance brought him to the hospital, but later followed up with a bill for $1,800 for the ride. Hosch has since filed a lawsuit seeking just under $1 million. After a night out in 2016, 23-year-old Royal Air Force gunner Corey McKeague suddenly vanished. Security footage showed him entering a street, but never showed him exiting. Police eventually concluded that he fell asleep in a garbage bin and was crushed to death by a garbage truck. Corey's body was never found. In 2007, a 21-year-old man named Ben Carpenter, who suffers from muscular dystrophy, was pushed by a semi-truck for 4 miles after his wheelchair got stuck in the grill. Thankfully, officers heading in the opposite direction noticed the terrifying situation and stopped the driver before things got serious. Ben miraculously escaped without a scratch on him, but was traumatized by the incident. Known for his legendary role of Cousin Eddie in the National Lampoon's Vacation movies, American actor Randy Quaid has faced a bevy of legal issues over the years. In 2009, he and his wife Evie were arrested for allegedly using a fake credit card to pay a $10,000 hotel bill. The next year, the couple was arrested again after spending 5 days in a guest house on a property they once owned in Cali. Facing felony vandalism charges, they fled to Canada seeking asylum, claiming they were gonna be murdered by a group of Hollywood star whackers. The couple was later detained by Canadian immigration officials but eventually released. They now permanently reside in Burlington, Vermont, and still maintain that they were victims of a dark Hollywood conspiracy. During the 2014 filming of Muppets Most Wanted, Danny Trejo's mom suddenly passed away. The actor managed to hold it together when everyone on set gave him their condolences. But when Kermit the Frog offered his own sympathies, Trejo ran to the bathroom bawling his eyes out. An Italian mafia hitman named Edgardo Greco killed 2 mob rivals with a crowbar before fleeing to France. He went on the run for more than 30 years until he was discovered working as a prestigious pizza chef. Greco's food became so famous thanks to his homemade recipes that he was featured in the local newspaper, resulting in his cover being blown. In 1999, police were called to Matthew McConaughey's Texas home after his neighbor reported loud music and disturbances. When they arrived, officers found the actor playing the bongos while blazed out of his skull and completely naked. He was arrested for possession of marijuana. Many historians believe that the crotch part of medieval armor was enlarged not to make the knight's junk look bigger, but to prevent the pain caused by syphilis when their genitals rubbed against the metal. During the Cold War, the CIA highly considered using condoms as a weapon against Russia. They wanted to drop extra-large condoms that were labeled small on Soviet territory to lower their morale, but the plan was eventually scrapped. King Philip V of Spain and his court were known to play a game that translated to the imperturbable. A bunch of naked men would sit around a table covered by a cloth, while a lady underneath the table would put her mouth around one of their willies. The rest of the players would have to guess who was receiving it, and if their guess was correct, the player who was getting socked would have to leave the game. The game was won by the player who could climax without any of the other players noticing. Apparently, this game was very popular among French nobility in the 18th century. When Blackbeard blockaded Charleston Harbor in 1718, he wasn't seeking gold, but instead demanded mercury. Up until the 20th century, it was widely believed that injecting mercury into the urethra was a cure for syphilis. After a long stay in the brothels of Barbados, most of the men in Blackbeard's fleet were infested with STDs. Thus, Blackbeard captured Charleston Harbor to try and make his male parts feel better. The first ever reliable pregnancy test involved injecting a woman's urine into the skin of a female African clawed frog. If the woman was pregnant, the frog would lay eggs within a few hours. William the Conqueror smashed his nuts so hard on his horse's saddle that it gave him an awful infection which he died from a few weeks later. Priests later tried to force his body into a stone coffin that was far too small, causing his corpse to effectively explode. In the 19th century, doctors would perform pelvic massages to treat hysteria in women. Essentially, women would be finger-banged until they reached hysterical paroxysm, aka climax. But these treatments were often time-consuming and gave many doctors carpal tunnel, thus the vibrator was born. George Michael, who's known for the Christmas classic Last Christmas I Gave You My Heart, died on Christmas Day in 2016 from a heart condition. All of the characters in Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas were inspired by hallucinations he had during a fever that nearly killed him. In December of 1959, Dr. Harold Perelson murdered his wife with a hammer before taking his own life, all while his 2 little kids watched in horror. For the next 50 years afterwards, the home remained completely abandoned and untouched. Intruders over the years claimed that the Christmas tree, unopened presents, and decorations could still be seen exactly as they were on that murderous night in 1959. While filming for The Grinch, the thick makeup and prosthetics made Jim Carrey feel like he was buried alive each day. It became so brutal for him that they had to hire a former CIA agent to teach him techniques for coping with torture. In 1932 Arizona, a man dressed as Santa Claus jumped from a plane to parachute into a Christmas parade. Sadly, his parachute failed to open, and hundreds of parents had to cover their kids' eyes as Santa plummeted to his death. South Park's Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh originated when Trey Parker was potty training at age 4. His father always told him that if he didn't flush his Mr. Hanky, it would come to life and murder him in his sleep. In 2018, a 66-year-old Canadian man was arrested for murdering 8 people over a 7-year span. During that time, he worked as a mall Santa in Toronto. Many of the indoor scenes in the movie Elf were shot inside an abandoned mental asylum in Canada. The Grinch as a kid was played by an 18-year-old actor with dwarfism. Sadly, he died of heart failure just 2 years after the movie released. There's a convincing fan theory that suggests Kevin McAllister from Home Alone grew up to become the serial killer Jigsaw from the Saw movie franchise. On Christmas Eve in 2008, Bruce Pardo entered his in-laws' California home while dressed as Santa Claus. But instead of giving his family a festive surprise, Bruce unleashed hell. He crashed the party of 25 people and took 9 lives, either by shooting them or dousing them in flames with his homemade flamethrower. With his Santa suit melted to his skin from the fire, he drove to his brother's house and turned the gun on himself. In 1991, 11-year-old California girl J.C. Duggard was abducted by convicted sex offender Philip Garrido while waiting for her school bus. Garrido kept J.C. handcuffed in various tents and sheds that he built in his backyard where he would consistently abuse her. 7 months into her captivity, Garrido introduced J.C. to his wife Nancy, who brought the child a stuffed animal and chocolate milk while tearfully apologizing to her, but did nothing to free her. Instead, she helped her husband manipulate the young girl, at one point giving her 2 kittens before later taking them away. JC was eventually forced to bear a daughter at age 14 and another at 17, though she was never allowed to see a doctor. She remained missing for 18 years until a parole officer finally discovered her while investigating Garrido. He was sentenced to 431 years in prison, while his wife received 36 years to life. The state of California eventually awarded the Duggard family $20 million for its mishandling of the case. In 1960, 12-year-old Howard Doley was given an unnecessary lobotomy because his stepmother wasn't able to handle a normal preteen boy. She took him to several doctors who said Howard was perfectly healthy and blamed his questionable behavior on her bad parenting. That was until Dr. Walter Freeman, the man who popularized the lobotomy, diagnosed him with schizophrenia and offered to scramble his brain. It took Howard decades to recover from the barbaric procedure, spending years of his life in institutions, prisons, as a homeless person, and an alcoholic. Howard eventually earned a college degree and wrote several memoirs about his lobotomy. In 2009, the body of a man with graying hair was found washed up on a beach in Sligo, Ireland. He'd been checked into a nearby hotel under the name Peter Bergman, and his movements were captured on security cameras throughout the town, but aside from this, very little is known about the man. He was found with most of his clothes left behind on the shore, with no wallet, money, or form of ID. It's not even clear how he died, since there was no evidence of drowning or foul play, but the post-mortem showed that he had advanced stages of prostate cancer and bone tumors, and was likely in significant pain before he died. One thing that's for certain is that the man traveled extensively to erase all evidence of his existence, as he still remains unidentified to this day. In 1995, Johnny Depp saved Courtney Love's life after she overdosed outside of a nightclub in Los Angeles. He performed CPR and managed to revive her before paramedics arrived and rushed her to the hospital. Instead of flowers, people bring sticks to the 120-year-old grave of a dog named Rex. In the year 2000, a passenger on a Philippine Airlines flight hijacked the plane and robbed all the other passengers. He tried escaping using a homemade parachute, but was afraid to jump out and needed a flight attendant to push him. His parachute failed to open and he plummeted to his death while everyone else was unharmed. If Laverne accepts this man's proposal, he will make you the happiest woman on earth. A 2-year-old girl from Turkey was heard screaming from her backyard before neighbors rushed over to check on her. When they reached her, they found a bite mark on her lip and a 2-foot-long snake dead in front of her. She'd apparently been bitten by the snake and killed it by biting it back in revenge. A few years after singing the hit song Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Diana Ross lost her ex-husband in a tragic mountain climbing accident. In 1902, the Mount Pelee eruption killed all 30,000 people in a village except for a prisoner who was on death row. He was locked up deep underground in solitary confinement, which served as the perfect shelter from the blast. In 2015, a man swimming near Huntington Beach, California was suddenly struck in the back by a great white. After making it ashore and going to the hospital, doctors assured him that he'd be fine. Upon seeing his x-rays, they realized he had a cancerous tumor that they were just barely able to remove in time. In Bermuda, 1974, 17-year-old Erskine Eben was struck and killed by a taxi driver while riding his moped. Almost exactly a year later, his twin brother Neville was riding that same moped when he was struck and killed by the same taxi driver, carrying the same passenger on the same street. Well, it turns out the Duke grape scandal was a confirmed massive lie. In 2006, a stripper named Crystal Mangum was hired to perform at a party hosted by members of the Duke University men's lacrosse team. After the party, Crystal claimed that 3 players on the team dragged her into the bathroom before beating, choking, and graping her. The DA who was assigned to the case then conspired with the DNA lab director to withhold crucial evidence that would have easily cleared the players of the accusations. Instead, they were charged with rape, and a public uproar led to the team's entire lacrosse season being canceled, while the coach of 16 years was forced to resign. But the players were exonerated the next year after it was revealed that Crystal was actually just a crazy bitch. A few years later, she was found guilty of second-degree murder after repeatedly stabbing her boyfriend and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Just recently on a podcast, the still-in-prison former stripper admitted that she made up the entire grape case and has asked the Duke players for forgiveness. In the mid-2000s, Giancarlo Esposito was forced to declare bankruptcy since his acting career was failing. The father of 4 then considered hiring a hitman to murder him to provide the insurance money for his family. But shortly afterwards, he landed the role of Gus Fring on Breaking Bad, which completely turned his life around. In 2010, 2 women tried to smuggle their dead relative's body onto a flight by putting him in a wheelchair and giving him sunglasses. They were apparently trying to save the $3,000 it would have cost them to send his body back home. In 2014, single mother Sarah Sands discovered that her 77-year-old neighbor had sexually abused her 3 sons. When authorities allowed him to return to his nearby apartment, she murdered him by stabbing him 8 times with a 12-inch blade. It was later revealed that he'd been living under a fake identity after 24 previous convictions for sex offenses that spanned over 3 decades. Sarah ended up serving 4 years in prison for the murder. During an SAS training exercise in 1996, 21-year-old Bear Grylls broke his back after falling 16,000 feet when his parachute failed to open. His surgeon wasn't sure if Grylls would ever walk again, but the survival expert climbed Mount Everest just 18 months later, becoming the youngest Brit to ever do it. Here's a photo of 13-year-old Barbara Kent and her fellow campers playing in a New Mexico river, just hours before the first atomic bomb was tested 40 miles away from them. Over the next few days, the area was covered in fallout flakes that the campers thought was snow, only it was hot instead of cold. The US government had selected the site for its supposed isolation, but in reality, thousands of people were within a 40-mile radius and weren't evacuated nor warned before the test. Despite being diagnosed with 4 different types of cancers throughout her life, Barbara was the only girl in the above photo who lived past the age of 30, somehow making it to 83. In 2013, double amputee and 4-time Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius shot his girlfriend 3 times through a locked bathroom door, claiming he mistook her for an intruder. During his murder trial, Pistorius removed his prosthetics and hobbled on his stumps, while apparently attempting to garner sympathy and a more lenient sentence. But the judge wasn't buying it and sentenced the athlete to 15 years in prison for murder. This is the skeleton of a female vampire pinned to the ground with a sickle across her throat to prevent her from returning from the dead. It was found during an archaeological dig at a 17th century cemetery in Poland. In the late 1800s, there is an urban legend about a demonic figure roaming around the Arizona deserts that killed multiple people. It turned out to be a feral camel with the decaying corpse of a male soldier strapped to its back, likely the tragic result of Jefferson Davis's attempt to create a camel division in the U.S. Army. During a trip to Africa in 1896, American taxidermist Carl Akeley survived a leopard attack by ramming his hand down the cat's throat and choking it to death. Today, Carl is known as the father of modern taxidermy for his innovative techniques, and is also remembered for inventing the nature dioramas that are popular at museums. A Russian kitchen worker named Zinaida Portnova is known for killing more than 100 Nazis by poisoning their food when she was only 16. While being interrogated by the Gestapo, she disarmed the Nazi detective and shot him in the head. She then murdered 2 more Nazis with the same gun before being killed while attempting to escape. Nicknamed Black Death, Henry Johnson was a member of the Harlem Hellfighters who single-handedly stopped a German ambush in World War I. Despite being stabbed, shot, and hit with a grenade, the 5'4" soldier injured or killed 24 German enemies without a working gun. He was the first American soldier to win a Croix de Guerre, France's highest honor for bravery. Shortly after getting married, English mother Mary Ann Bevan developed a hormonal condition called acromegaly that completely distorted her face, resulting in her losing her job as a nurse due to her ugliness. After the passing of her husband, Mary was left with no choice but to join the circus so that she could still support her 4 kids. She was nicknamed the ugliest woman on earth and endured daily ridicule for the last 13 years of her life just so she could continue to feed her family. American man Bob Fletcher took care of the farms of 3 Japanese-American families while they were interned during World War II. Despite being shot at for supporting them, Bob kept all their farms running and paid their bills, ensuring that the innocent families didn't lose everything. During the Parkland shooting in 2018, a 15-year-old student named Anthony Borges was shot 5 times while barricading the door to his classroom. He successfully stopped the shooter from entering, saving all 20 of his classmates, and eventually went on to make a full recovery. Mark Gator Rogowski was one of the biggest stars in skateboarding throughout the 80s until he suffered a severe accident at a West Germany hotel. The skater fell from his window and landed on a fence, resulting in critical injuries including a broken neck. After his career quickly fell off and his girlfriend broke up with him, Rogowski raped and murdered one of his ex's friends and was sentenced to 31 years in prison. Earlier this month, Colombian police announced the arrest of a 22-year-old hitwoman known as The Doll. She had reportedly carried out several gang-related murders including her ex-boyfriend, and was known for her expert handling of firearms. After witnessing mass murders at various concentration camps during the Holocaust, Nazi officer Kurt Gerstein tried to alert the world that the Holocaust was happening. In 1942, he made detailed reports to Swiss, Dutch, and Swedish diplomats, but they were largely ineffective. Gerstein ended up taking his own life in 1945.